The alien research station was the size of a small moon. It floated above a dying star, glowing red with fire and storms. Inside the station, thousands of aliens worked day and night. They were proud scientists, engineers, and soldiers. All of them believed they were the smartest minds of the galaxy. Among them moved a man no one cared about. His name was Daniel. He was human, but he was not a scientist, not an officer, not a soldier. He was just a cleaner, a janitor, a single dad trying to earn food for his daughter. To most aliens, Daniel was invisible. They passed him in the corridors without even looking. Sometimes, they mocked him, calling him the broom human. Daniel never answered. He just kept cleaning the shining halls. But Daniel noticed things others ignored. He had sharp eyes and sharper instincts. When the reactors hummed too loudly, he heard it. When the lights flickered for no reason, he saw it. When the metal floor under his boots carried strange vibrations, he felt it. The aliens laughed, but Daniel kept watching. Every night, after long hours of work, Daniel walked back to the small human quarters. Inside his tiny room, his daughter Emily waited for him. She was only 8 years old with bright eyes and messy hair. She always asked, "Papa, why do they treat you like nothing?" Daniel smiled and said, "Because they don't know us yet, but one day they will." He tucked her into bed, kissed her forehead, and whispered, "I'll always keep you safe." The next morning, Daniel returned to his job. The great reactor chamber of the station was his least favorite place to clean. The massive core stood in the center, glowing with deadly energy. Hundreds of alien engineers worked around it, their claws tapping on consoles. The sound of machines filled the air. Daniel pushed his mop quietly across the floor, ignored by everyone, but today was different. Today he felt something wrong. The hum of the reactor was uneven. It pulsed like a heartbeat out of rhythm. He frowned, pressing his hand against the wall. The vibration was stronger than before. A warning, danger was close. He looked at the engineers. "Excuse me," Daniel said softly. One alien glanced at him with 4 glowing eyes. "What do you want, cleaner?" the alien growled. Daniel pointed at the core. "The vibration, it is not normal. The energy flow is unbalanced." The engineers burst out laughing. "You, a human janitor, telling us about reactors?" Another alien shouted. "Go mop the floor, human. Leave science to real minds." Daniel's face burned with shame, but he did not argue. He lowered his head and pushed his cart away. But in his heart, fear grew stronger. He had seen enough strange signs to know something terrible was coming. And if the reactor failed, everyone would die, including Emily. That night, Daniel could not sleep. He sat by the small window in his room, watching the dying star outside. Its burning waves reminded him of the reactor, unstable and angry. Emily stirred in her bed, whispering, "Papa, why are you awake?" Daniel forced a smile. "Nothing. My star, go back to sleep," but deep inside he knew he was lying. The following day, alarms blared for a few seconds, then went silent. The aliens dismissed it as a false reading, but Daniel knew better. He had cleaned enough broken machines in his life to recognize a warning sign. While scrubbing the control room floor, he bent down and studied the panels. His sharp eyes caught a tiny crack of burned metal near a coolant pipe. He froze, his heartbeat racing. That pipe carried liquid that kept the reactor cool. If it failed, the whole core could overheat. No one else noticed. No one else cared. Daniel was just a cleaner. Yet he was the only one who saw. For the rest of the shift, Daniel could not stop thinking. He replayed the moment in his mind again and again. His instincts screamed at him. Something big was coming. The aliens might ignore him, but he could not ignore the truth. He had to be ready. For Emily, for everyone. That night he held his daughter close. Outside, the dying star roared. Inside, the reactor hummed like a monster ready to break free. And Daniel whispered to himself, "If they won't listen, then I will act." No one knew it yet, but the invisible cleaner was about to change everything. *. The next morning, the station looked normal on the outside. Aliens moved through the shining corridors, carrying data tablets and tools. Their voices echoed in strange languages, sharp and proud. The reactor core hummed in the distance, louder than before, but no one seemed to care. Daniel pushed his mop across the polished floor of the engineering hall. His head was low, but his ears were sharp. He listened as the engineers laughed together. One of them said, "The human janitor thinks he understands our reactor." Another burst out laughing. "Yes, next he will say he can fix it with his broom." Their cruel voices carried through the hall. They weren't whispering. They wanted him to hear. Daniel's face tightened, but he said nothing. He kept scrubbing the floor, his hands steady. Inside, though, his chest burned with frustration. He was not asking for respect, he was asking them to see the danger, but they only saw a man with a mop. One engineer walked past Daniel and kicked his bucket. Water spilled across the floor. The aliens laughed louder. Pointing at him like children, Daniel bent down silently, cleaning the mess without a word. But deep inside, he made a silent promise. One day, they would regret their laughter. That evening, Daniel returned to the human quarters. Emily was waiting, with a small drawing she had made on a scrap of paper. It showed a stick figure of her father holding her hand under a bright sun. "Look, Papa, this is us back on Earth when we will go there someday," she said. Daniel smiled weakly, his heart heavy. He hugged her and whispered, "One day we will see the sky again." But as he held her, the thought of the unstable reactor filled his mind. Would she ever see Earth? Or would the station burn before that day? The next day, Daniel decided he could not stay quiet anymore. During his shift in the reactor chamber, he approached the alien supervisor. The alien was tall, with shining armor-like skin and 4 arms. Daniel spoke firmly. "The coolant pipe near Section 7 is damaged. I saw burn marks. If not repaired, it will overheat." The supervisor stared at him in silence for a moment, then burst into laughter. Others turned to listen, and soon the whole chamber was filled with laughter. "Listen to the cleaner, he thinks he is an engineer," one said. Another shouted, "Maybe next time he will tell us how to build ships." The supervisor sneered, lowering his face to Daniel. "You are a janitor, a servant. Your only job is to scrub floors. Do not waste our time with nonsense." Daniel felt the weight of every eye staring at him. Mockery cut deeper than any blade, but he stood his ground even as they laughed. "Whether you believe me or not, danger is coming," he said, his voice low but steady. They laughed harder, calling him foolish, weak, useless. One even imitated him, bending down with a mop and saying, "The reactor speaks to me, I can hear it." The whole hall exploded with cruel laughter. Daniel clenched his fists, but he walked away without a word. He knew anger would change nothing, but silence could not erase the truth he had seen at her. That night, Daniel sat in his room staring at the ceiling. Emily slept peacefully beside him, hugging her blanket. He whispered to himself, "They think I am nothing, but they are blind. They cannot hear what I hear." The memory of the uneven hum of the reactor echoed in his ears. The vibration still ran through the walls like a hidden drum. He could feel it stronger every day. The storm was building and time was running out. 2 days later, the first small incident happened. A minor explosion rocked one of the power conduits near the lower decks. Smoke filled the corridor. Alarms screamed and workers ran in panic. Daniel was there cleaning the hall when it happened. He grabbed a fire extinguisher and rushed forward. Aliens stared in surprise as the janitor battled flames with steady hands. He saved 3 workers trapped in the smoke, pulling them to safety. But instead of thanks, the supervisor scolded him. "You should not interfere, human. Leave these matters to professionals." Daniel wiped the ash from his face, his eyes dark with anger. He wanted to shout, to tell them the truth. But he swallowed his words. If they refused to see the signs, he would carry the burden alone. That night, Emily woke up to find her father staring out the window again. "Papa, are we safe here?" she asked, her small voice trembling. Daniel knelt beside her, holding her hands. "As long as I am here, you are safe," he promised. But inside, his heart whispered a darker truth. He was one man against an entire station of blind fools. And if he failed, no one would survive. In the cold silence of space, the reactor pulsed like a hidden beast. Aliens laughed at the cleaner, but soon their laughter would turn into screams, and only Daniel would know what to do. The research station floated in silent space, but inside, tension grew with every passing day. The great reactor that powered the station glowed brighter, its hum sharper. Most aliens ignored it, trusting their machines and their pride. But Daniel felt it in his bones, in his blood. Every time he walked past the reactor chamber, the vibration shook through his boots. Every day it grew stronger, like a hidden drum beating faster and faster. Daniel kept cleaning floors, pushing his mop, carrying buckets. The aliens passed him without care, laughing, mocking. To them, he was nothing, a shadow moving in the background. But Daniel's eyes were sharp, and his mind worked quietly. He began to notice the details no one else saw. Pipes running hotter than before, control panels flashing warnings for half a second then going dark, small leaks forming near coolant valves, quickly covered with sealant by careless hands. Each sign was a whisper of disaster, a warning no one wanted to hear. At night, Daniel could not sleep. He sat by the window of his small room, staring at the burning star outside. Its red waves reminded him of the reactor, unstable, angry, close to breaking. Emily sat beside him, rubbing her sleepy eyes. "Papa, why do you always watch the star?" she asked softly. Daniel wrapped an arm around her, pulling her close. "Because the star tells me secrets," he whispered. Emily tilted her head, curious. "What secrets?" "That even the brightest light can die if no one protects it," he answered, his eyes heavy with worry. The next day, Daniel carried his cleaning cart into the control wing. Aliens filled the hall, arguing over data. Charts and glowing screens showed energy levels climbing. One engineer waved his arms, shouting, "It is only a fluctuation, nothing serious." Another replied, "The core has operated for decades, without failure. It will not fail now." Their voices were filled with arrogance, not fear. Daniel stood in the corner, silently watching. He wanted to shout, to warn them, but he knew they would only laugh again. Instead, he studied the schematics displayed on the wall. He had seen them before while cleaning. Old diagrams of the reactor's inner systems. He memorized every line, every valve, every coolant path. His mind pieced them together like a puzzle, and the picture he saw terrified him. The coolant flow was reversed in some areas. Instead of cooling, the liquid was trapping heat. One day soon it would push the core into overload. That night, Daniel worked late, cleaning near the lower conduits. The air was hot, too hot. Sweat rolled down his neck as he crouched near a pipe. He pressed his ear against the metal and heard it, a hiss like boiling water. He touched the pipe and pulled his hand back in, and it was burning. His heart raced. The danger was no longer far away. It was here, right under their feet. He reported it again the next morning, but the engineers dismissed him. "You think a little heat scares us," one said. "You humans are too weak." Another added, "If the reactor fails, our systems will catch it." Daniel gritted his teeth. They trusted their machines more than their own eyes. They trusted arrogance more than survival. In the gear. Following days, small malfunctions spread across the station. Doors stuck open. Lights flickered in long corridors. Energy surges blacked out entire sections for minutes. The aliens called them technical errors, minor problems. But Daniel knew better. He felt the rising heat everywhere. In the walls, in the floors, even in the air his daughter breathed. Emily noticed too. "Papa, why is it so hot at night?" she asked, fanning herself with a paper scrap. Daniel smiled softly but could not hide the truth from his eyes. He hugged her close, whispering, "Stay near me, no matter what happens." She looked at him with wide, trusting eyes. "Will you protect me?" she asked. "Always," he said. But inside, he wondered how much longer he could hold back the storm. 2 nights later, Daniel woke to the sound of alarms. Red lights flashed across the human quarters. A voice shouted through the speakers, "Minor surge in the reactor systems. Under control. No danger." The aliens calmed quickly, believing the words. But Daniel knew lies when he heard them. He had felt the surge before the alarms. The walls shook, the floor trembled, the whole station groaned like a beast in pain. He rose from his bed, pulling on his work clothes. Emily stirred, frightened. "Papa, where are you going?" Daniel kissed her forehead. "To make sure you are safe." Then he walked out into the silent corridors. The lights flickered above him, the air smelled faintly of smoke, and he whispered to himself, "It is closer now, so close." In the control chamber, the aliens celebrated. They laughed and said, "Another false alarm. The human janitor worries too much." Daniel stood in the shadows watching them, his hands clenched, his jaw tight. He knew the truth. The reactor was no longer stable. It was a ticking bomb, and when it exploded, no one would escape. But Daniel was not ready to give up. He had fought too many battles in life. He had lost too much already. For Emily, for himself, for everyone on this station, he would fight again, even if he had to stand alone against an entire galaxy. The heat was rising, the hum was growing, the storm was coming, and Daniel knew, very soon, he would have to act. Asterisk. The alien station looked calm on the outside, but deep within, chaos was building. The reactor core glowed like a furious heart, pulsing with unstable energy. The engineers still believed everything was fine. They trusted their machines more than their instincts. But Daniel knew better. Every step he took on the floor, every hum in the walls, every flicker of the lights told him the same thing. Time was running out. That morning, alarms wailed again, longer than before. Red lights flashed across the reactor chamber. Aliens shouted at one another, running between consoles. Energy levels spiked on the screens, numbers racing upward, yet the supervisors barked, orders with arrogance. "Stabilize flow, reroute power, no danger," they declared. Daniel watched from the shadows, mop in hand, his heart beating fast. He could see the panic in their eyes even as they tried to hide it. They did not know what to do. Daniel stepped forward, his voice strong. "The coolant lines are reversed. Your readings are wrong. If you don't fix it now, the core will overload." The chamber went silent for a moment, every eye turning to him. Then came the laughter again, sharp and cruel. "The janitor speaks," one alien engineer mocked. "Go clean the waste rooms, human. Leave science to us," another shouted. But their laughter was weaker this time, trembling at the edges. Even in their arrogance, they feared the truth of his words. Daniel's fists clenched, but he did not back down. He pointed at the nearest console. "Look at your energy flow. See how the numbers rise and fall unevenly. The pipes cannot handle it. Your own screens are telling you." An engineer slammed the console, angrily, but the readings did not change. Numbers spiked, alarms screamed louder. The room shook as the reactor groaned deep within. Daniel's voice cut through the chaos. "You have minutes, maybe less." Guards moved to block him, tall aliens in armor with glowing weapons. "Silence the human," the supervisor ordered. Daniel felt anger boil inside him, but he stood tall. "You can silence me, but you cannot silence the reactor," he said. His words echoed in the chamber, heavy and sharp. The guards hesitated, uncertain. The alarms kept screaming, drowning out the arrogance of their leaders. At that moment, the lights across the station flickered. Corridors went dark, doors slammed shut. The sound of metal groaning filled the air. Every alien froze. Terror on their faces, Daniel whispered under his breath. "It begins." In the human quarters, Emily clutched her blanket as the lights flickered above her bed. She curled up in fear, whispering, "Papa," but Daniel was not there. He was standing in the heart of the storm, facing a choice no one else dared to face. The engineers scrambled, shouting orders. "Activate the fail-safes," one yelled. "Switch to auxiliary power," another cried. But the controls did not respond. The reactor roared like a beast breaking its chains. Panels sparked. Smoke filled the chamber. Aliens coughed and screamed, their pride collapsing into panic. Daniel stepped forward, his voice cutting through the smoke. "Shut down the secondary lines or the whole system will collapse." "No," the supervisor growled. "He's lying. He's trying to trick us." But another engineer shouted, Look, he's right, the flow is reversed, it doesn't make sense. The chamber broke into chaos, some following orders, others hesitating. Time slipped away like sand through fingers. Daniel's heart pounded. He thought of Emily waiting for him. He thought of her small hands drawing suns and trees on scraps of paper. If he failed, she would die without ever seeing Earth again. He could not allow that. He would not. The floor trembled violently, throwing workers off balance. One massive alien fell near Daniel, staring at him with fear. "What do we do?" the alien whispered. For the first time, they were asking the janitor for answers. Daniel's eyes burned with determination. "Get me tools now," he demanded. The countdown had begun. The control chamber screen displayed numbers dropping. 30 seconds, 29, 28. A system override had started, the reactor heading into critical. If they failed to stop it, the entire station would explode in seconds. Thousands would die, and the galaxy would never even know why. Daniel grabbed a wrench, his hands moving fast. He crawled into the narrow duct where no alien could fit. The heat burned his skin, sweat poured from his forehead. The sound of rushing energy filled his ears, louder than thunder. Behind him, aliens shouted, counting down the seconds. 20, 19, 18. Inside the duct, Daniel's hands shook as he gripped the valve. It was stuck, hot as fire. Pain shot through his arms, but he did not let go. He gritted his teeth, whispering, "For Emily." With a final roar of effort, he turned the valve halfway, steam bursting out. The energy flow shifted slightly. The countdown paused. Aliens gasped in shock, their eyes wide, but it was not over. The reactor screamed louder, the lights dimmed across the station, and the numbers on the screen began to fall again. 10, 9, 8. Time was almost gone. Daniel crawled deeper, ignoring the burns, ignoring the pain. The storm was here, and he was the only one who could stop it. The janitor they mocked was about to decide the fate of thousands. And as the countdown reached its final seconds, the station held its breath. Asterisk, the station shook like a ship caught in a storm. The reactor screamed with power, alarms wailed in every corridor. Aliens shouted in panic, some running, some frozen in fear. On the main screen, the countdown numbers glowed bright and merciless. 7, 6, 5. Daniel's heart hammered in his chest as he crawled deeper into the maintenance duct. The space was tight, the air burning hot. His skin stung from steam and sparks. Behind him, he heard the desperate voices of aliens counting. 4, 3, 2. He gritted his teeth and pushed forward. He could not think of failure, not when Emily's face filled his mind. "Papa, will you always protect me?" Her voice echoed in his memory. Yes, always. He had promised her. Now those words became his strength. He dragged himself to the next valve, his hands raw and blistered. The heat was unbearable, but he grabbed the wheel and forced it with all his strength. Metal groaned, the valve turned, and energy rushed through the pipes in a new direction. On the main console, the countdown froze at 2. The aliens gasped, staring in disbelief. He stopped it, one whispered. But Daniel knew it was not over. The reactor's hum was still wild, unstable. He only bought them seconds, nothing more. The supervisor, his arrogance shattered, shouted, "Human, what do we do now?" For the first time, they looked at him not as a janitor, but as their only chance. Daniel's voice was hoarse but steady. "Open the emergency vents, reroute pressure through the auxiliary pipes. If you don't, the core will still explode." The alien scrambled, following his words without hesitation this time. Panels sparked, metal clanged, smoke filled the air. But slowly, the numbers on the screen climbed back up. 10, 11, 12. The overload was slowing. The countdown halted. Daniel crawled out of the duct, his body shaking, his hands burned red. The guards who once blocked his path now moved aside. Clearing the way for him, aliens stared at him with wide, fearful eyes. Not in mockery this time, but in awe. The human janitor had done what no one else could, but Daniel did not celebrate. He looked at the reactor, its glow still pulsing dangerously. "This is only the beginning," he whispered. The system was damaged, unstable, one mistake, one wrong move, and the countdown would return. Hours passed, every moment filled with tension. Daniel worked side by side with the very engineers who once laughed at him. He crawled through ducts, tightened valves, sealed leaks. They followed his instructions. Though their pride hurt them, they could no longer deny the truth. This human saw what they could not. Every time Daniel's strength faltered, he thought of Emily. He pictured her waiting in the human quarters, clutching her blanket, whispering his name. Her trust gave him power. He could not let her down, he would not. But the reactor fought back. A massive surge rattled the chamber, throwing workers to the ground. Sparks exploded. Fire burst from a panel. Daniel was knocked back, his arm bleeding. He coughed through the smoke, forcing himself to rise. Pain tore through his body, but he moved forward anyway because failure was not an option. "Human, stop. You will die," an alien shouted. Daniel shook his head, his voice firm. "If I stop, we all die." Those words silenced the chamber. Every alien stared at him as if seeing him for the first time. Daniel climbed back into the duct, crawling toward the final pressure valve. The metal was shaking, cracking under the force. The heat burned his skin, sweat blinded his eyes, but he kept moving inch by inch. The sound of the reactor roared in his ears like thunder. He reached the valve, but it was jammed tight. His hands slipped. Blood smeared across the wheel. For a moment, despair filled his chest, but then he remembered Emily's smile, her small voice whispering, "Papa, I believe in you." And he roared with fury, twisting the wheel with every ounce of strength. The valve cracked loose. Energy rushed into the vents. Steam blasted into the duct, throwing him back in the control chamber. The numbers on the screen steadied. The overload halted. The reactor's hum softened. The aliens erupted in cheers, relief flooding their voices. "He did it!" they cried. "The human saved us!" Daniel collapsed on the floor of the duct, gasping for breath, his body broken but alive. Guards pulled him out, carrying him into the chamber. Aliens surrounded him, their eyes wide with respect and gratitude. The supervisor stepped forward, lowering his head. "You saved us, human. You saved us all." But Daniel's eyes searched the room for only one thing. "Where's Emily?" he whispered, his voice weak. "She's safe," a guard answered quickly. "The human quarters are secure." Relief washed over him, his body shaking with exhaustion. He had risked everything, but his daughter was safe. As Daniel lay on the floor, his burned hands trembling, he realized the truth. He was no longer invisible, no longer the janitor they mocked. He had become something else. The one who stood against fire and death when no one else could. The one who fought against all odds, and though the danger was not over, though the reactor still needed repair, the aliens now looked at him with new eyes, not as a cleaner, not as a servant, but as the man who had saved them from certain death. The alien station floated in silence outside, but inside, the heart of the reactor still boiled with fury. Though Daniel had slowed the overload, the danger was not gone. The core glowed too bright, the hum too violent. It was like holding back a beast that wanted to tear free. In the control chamber, aliens scrambled over broken panels, shouting orders. Sparks rained from the ceiling, smoke filled the air. Numbers on the screen flashed red, climbing again. The countdown returned. 20 seconds, 19, 18. Every alien froze as the numbers dropped. Their pride was gone, their arrogance shattered, now fear ruled them. Daniel pulled himself to his feet. His body bruised, his hands blistered, he could barely stand, but his eyes were sharp, burning with fire. He stared at the countdown and whispered, "Not yet. Not now." His daughter's face flashed in his mind, her voice soft. "Papa, come back." That memory gave him strength. "Human, what do we do?" the supervisor asked, his voice trembling. Daniel did not waste time with anger or pride. He spoke fast, his words sharp and clear. "The emergency vent isn't enough. You must reroute the main pressure directly into space. If not, the core will detonate." The supervisor hesitated, fear in his eyes. "That could destroy the entire chamber," he whispered. Daniel glared at him. Better a broken chamber than a dead station. The aliens obeyed, rushing to open systems, but the vents were jammed, controls unresponsive. The reactor shook harder, heat washing through the chamber. The countdown screamed, 10, 9, 8, Daniel grabbed a wrench and staggered toward the access hatch. "Where are you going?" a guard shouted. "To finish this," Daniel said, his voice steady. He climbed into the duct again, crawling toward the main vent. The metal burned his knees, steam cut across his arms. But he pushed forward, his breath ragged, his mind focused. Behind him, the aliens shouted the countdown, 7, 6, 5. Daniel reached the vent control, a massive wheel stuck with rust and heat. He grabbed it with both hands, his skin tearing, blood mixing with sweat. The wheel did not move. The reactor roared, light blasting through cracks in the chamber walls. The countdown screamed louder, 4, 3. Daniel's vision blurred, pain tearing through him. His body wanted to collapse, but his soul refused. He thought of Emily, her small arms wrapping around his neck, her smile brighter than any star. He whispered, "This is for you, my little star." With a roar, he twisted the wheel. The metal screamed, the vent cracked open, a blast of steam and fire erupted nearly. Throwing him back, energy rushed through the pipes, escaping into space. The reactor's glow flickered, the hum dipped, the countdown froze. 2, 1. Pause. The chamber went silent for a heartbeat. Every alien held their breath, eyes wide. Was it enough? Then the reactor shook violently, brighter than ever. The countdown returned, 3, 2, 1. The station groaned as if it were about to tear apart. Panels exploded, the floor cracked. Workers screamed. Daniel clenched the wheel tighter, refusing to let go. His body shook, his arms burned, but he twisted again with every ounce of strength left. The vent tore wider, energy burst out in a massive wave. A blinding light filled the chamber. For a moment it felt like the end. Aliens dropped to the floor, covering their heads. The station rocked as if struck by a meteor. Daniel was thrown back, slamming into the duct wall, his vision going dark. Silence. The light dimmed. The roar faded. The countdown vanished from the screen, replaced by green numbers. Stabilized. The reactor hummed softly. No longer a beast. The overload was gone. Aliens lifted their heads in shock, their bodies trembling. One whispered, "He did it." Another cried out, "The human saved us again." The chamber erupted in voices, disbelief and relief mixing together. They looked at Daniel lying in the duct, motionless, his body burned and broken. Guards rushed forward, pulling him out gently. Daniel's eyes flickered open, weak but alive. The supervisor knelt beside him, his pride gone. You saved us all," he whispered. Daniel coughed, forcing out words. "I didn't save you," he rasped. "I saved her." His eyes searched the room desperately. "Emily," he whispered. "Is my daughter safe?" A guard nodded quickly. "Yes, she is safe. The human quarters were protected." Relief washed over Daniel's face, tears mixing with the sweat and blood. He closed his eyes for a moment, breathing slowly. The aliens around him stared in awe. The janitor they once mocked had stood against fire and death. At the final second, he had done what their entire station of engineers could not. The great alien station lived because of him, and every alien in that chamber knew they owed their lives to the human they had underestimated. But Daniel did not think of glory. He thought only of Emily. His promise was kept. She was safe, and for him, that was enough. The alien station floated, quietly above the dying star. For the first time in weeks, the reactor chamber was calm. The furious hum was gone, replaced by a steady rhythm. The threat of explosion had ended, but the memory of it burned in every heart. Daniel lay on a bed in the medical wing, his hands wrapped in bandages, his face pale. Machines beeped softly around him, monitoring his weak but steady heartbeat. His body was broken, but he was alive. By his side sat Emily, holding his hand. Tightly, her eyes filled with tears, she whispered, "Papa, you came back to me." Daniel smiled faintly, his voice soft. "I promised, didn't I?" Outside his room, aliens gathered in silence. They looked through the glass walls, their faces filled with awe and shame. These were the same voices that once mocked him, the same eyes that ignored him. Now they stood in respect, whispering his name. The human. The one who saved us. Word spread quickly through the station, from the lowest worker to the highest commander. Everyone heard the same story. The janitor they had laughed at, the cleaner they had dismissed, had saved thousands of lives when, even their best minds could not. He was no longer invisible, no longer a shadow. In the council chamber, the alien leaders debated in hushed tones. They had never imagined a human could stand above them. Their pride was shaken, their arrogance broken. One leader said, "We must honor him." Another added, "Without him, the station would be dust." But the oldest among them whispered, "Perhaps it is time we stop calling humans weak." Days passed. Daniel's body slowly healed. Emily never left his side, drawing small suns and trees to decorate the walls. She told him stories in her sweet voice, making him smile even through the pain. And every time he opened his eyes, he saw her first. She was the reason he had crawled into fire, the reason he had fought against death itself. One evening, the supervisor who once mocked him entered quietly. The tall alien lowered his head, something Daniel had never seen before. "I came to thank you," the alien said, his voice heavy with guilt. "I laughed at you, I called you nothing, but in the end you were the one who saved us all." Daniel studied him with tired eyes, then shook his head slowly. "I didn't do it for you," he said. "I did it for my daughter, for the people who cannot fight for themselves." The alien nodded, shame burning in his eyes, but also respect, deep and real. Soon, the entire station gathered in the Great Hall. Aliens filled every level, their glowing eyes fixed on one small figure walking slowly across the platform. Daniel, bandaged and weak, supported by Emily at his side. He looked at them with humble eyes, not seeking glory, but the hall erupted in a sound no human had ever heard before. The aliens roared in unison, a cry of honor, respect, and thanks. It shook the walls, echoing like thunder through the station. Daniel stood in silence, listening, his heart heavy with emotion. He had never wanted recognition, never asked for respect. But now, as thousands of voices praised him, he understood something. It was not just about saving his daughter. He had saved them all, and in doing so, he had changed how they saw his kind. From that day forward, the aliens no longer called him Janitor. They called him Protector. And though Daniel smiled at the title, he knew who he truly was. A father who refused to break his promise. A man who would stand against fire itself for his child. In the quiet that followed the ceremony, Daniel sat with Emily by the observation window. The dying star glowed outside, its waves of light washing over them. Emily leaned against him, whispering, "Papa, will they laugh at you again?" Daniel smiled, shaking his head gently. "No, my little star, they will never laugh again." She looked at him with bright eyes. "Because you are a hero now." Daniel kissed her forehead, whispering, "I am only your papa, that is enough." The aliens might remember him as the man who saved their station. The galaxy might whisper his story as the day a human proved them all wrong. But Daniel cared only for one thing, that his daughter was safe, that she could dream of Earth again, that she could believe in a father who never gave up. And as the stars burned outside, the legend of the invisible cleaner spread. He was the hero nobody expected, but the hero they would never forget.